Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Businessology Show. You know, the show is sponsored for probably almost 11 years now by our firm, Blummer CPAs. And we love to help agencies run the financial side of their organizations. My partner and I do coaching and consulting with these agency entrepreneurs that are very brave people. So, you know, we have great guests that come on the show that actually know how to do this work of running an agency. It is not easy work. And so we ask real questions of real owners and people that just know how this profession works, and have a great guest and a friend, Brandie Knox, and she's the principal and creative director of Knox Design Strategy. And it's a branding design studio based in New York City, founded in 2009. So Knox Design Strategy works pretty tightly in a narrow niche of law firms, has about 40 law firm clients, does branding, design solutions, digital products, a lot of things that drive these businesses forward. And she earned her MFA from East Carolina University, taught some there, and has been in New York City for a long time. So, Brandie, I'm so excited to have you on the show. Welcome to the Businessology Show.
Thank you. Thank you, Jason.
Very cool. So
great to be here.
Yeah. So, Brandie, you're from North Carolina. So we're from the South, me and you, and people can probably tell. So how did you find your way to New York City? How'd you get up there?
Well, I went to grad school. I was still living in quite a small rural town in eastern North Carolina.
Yeah.
And I was in my late 20s and had this, epiphany that I had to get out of eastern North Carolina, at least to try and see what else was out there.
Yeah.
And so I did a little research. I'd been to New York a few times. I love the city.
Yeah.
I looked at DC, I looked at Chicago, and I figured, if you're going to go to the city, go to the city. So
that's right. Yeah.
I
DC.
Quit my job and I moved to New York.
Wow. And
20 years ago.
Wow. That's a long time. And we see New York behind you, right? Is that
Yes.
That's not a Zoom screen. That's a real picture of New York City.
That's a real picture. That's 3rd Avenue.
3rd Avenue. Very cool.
From the 18th floor.
Nice. Very good. Man, this is completely New Yorky. This is really cool. See, people are going to be like, God, he is from South Carolina. I'm like, the buildings are so tall. Now, so when you moved, you already had your degree, right? You had graduated? Okay. So
I had finished grad school.
Okay. So you were ready to get the heck out of Dodge. Did you go start your own agency right when you moved to New York City 20 years ago, or did you go work for an agency somewhere when you did that?
Yeah, I actually worked for an agency. So after I finished grad school in North Carolina, I actually taught for a few years as an assistant professor. I taught graphic design at ECU. Moved to New York, worked for a marketing communications agency for 2 years. And when I left there, I got recruited to go in-house at an international law firm, Sherman & Sterling. And I was there for almost 5 years.
Okay. And that's why you are focused on law firms now, is because you came out of a law firm. Is that right?
Correct. Yes. So in 2009, which wasn't a great time to start a business, I'd say, but it wasn't a great time to do a lot of things. And I started out on my own and put the word out that I was, open to freelance, perhaps looking to start my own business. Had a pretty tight network, a lot of great colleagues and friends from Sherman and in the industry, and people who a lot of people started to connect me with firms who needed help, and it just spiraled from there.
Yeah. Now, so an international law firm, that's a pretty massive organization. So they had offices in all the major cities we can think about. Is that right? Mm-hmm. They were in all the major cities.
Yeah.
Now, so what do you do in-house marketing for a law firm, an international law firm? What are the duties of that team?
Okay. So I work within the marketing and business development team. I manage the brand and design team. So we were about 4 to 5, depending. I'd say Sherman then probably had 19 or 20 global offices. So, as opposed to now where I have my own clients in-house, your internal clients are your clients, for lack of a better word. So you're working with different administrative support groups, marketing, business development, attorneys, various practice groups to produce marketing materials, recruiting materials. Then we did a little on the website side, a bit on the digital agent, the digital side, but a little less so than we do now.
Okay. Yeah, because I guess in-house, you're doing a lot of brand related work for that law firm, which is really important, right? And so now you do the digital. Is it hard? What's that niche like? Is that a difficult niche to serve? Like, I think you do a lot of complicated stuff for law firms. Can you talk about, when I say the complicated stuff, I really don't know any more than that. What complicated work are you doing for these larger law firms now?
Okay. Well, I think, we do everything from brand strategy to marketing communications to websites. And then, as you know, we do a lot on the internal application side. So intranets are very custom application builds. So, I would say on the marketing side, on the branding side, it's really understanding the various firms' target audiences, their personalities, the culture of the firm, and trying to determine really what differentiates and how to really present it to the public, what differentiates that firm. And sometimes those differentiators can be a bit challenging, right? Because you're looking at global law firms. Sometimes it even comes down to the various practices or the individual attorneys. Internally, for like internal applications and intranets, is really, you have to really get in there and understand the workflow, not just of business support staff, but of the lawyers and practice groups. And, every firm's a little bit different in terms of how they work, but really understanding the business side and their goals. So it's more than just the user experience or more than just the user interface and how it looks and feels, but really making sure that you're solving for the business problem.
Okay. And I guess law firms are like any client. Some want you to push the brand a little bit, some don't. Probably a lot of law firms I see, a lot of larger ones, their brands are very similar. And do you feel confined into how you develop that brand for a law firm to try to differentiate it from other law firms? Or is that something you can do in the legal industry?
You can. And I think there's something, rewarding about working within that structure and trying to figure out how to push the envelope just enough that's not, that's still appropriate and still works for the target audience, and trying to figure out that nuance of differentiating one, corporate law firm from another, if that makes sense.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, because I'm always thinking the brands look very similar, and you're like, I like that challenge. It sounds like because you can do some of your best work when you are kind of constrained, I guess. Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
A little. You're sort of working within the structure of the firm, but figuring out what those boundaries are within each firm. Yeah. And the personalities are always really different. Yeah. It's almost like having a lot of bosses.
Which we start our own company, so we don't have bosses, but we find out we actually do have bosses.
We do have bosses. Yes.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, and you've been running your agency since 2009. That's what did you say? How long? That's almost 15 years. Not 14, quite. 14.
Yeah. April Fool's Day was 14 years.
Are you serious?
Yes.
That's a sucky kind of anniversary. Sorry about that, but hey, it is what it is, right?
It is what it is.
It is what it is. Well, what are some of the lessons you've learned? Maybe that you've been surprised about, like man, this was hard to learn, or even the hard things, like things that happened to me that I didn't anticipate that were very difficult in those past 14 years. You got to teach us now.
Gosh, there's a long list.
I know.
I mean, running a business is something no one taught us in design school. So I'd say running a business, I've learned from a lot of very smart people. I've hired consultants along the way when I need help. I mean, obviously I work with your team. It's really tapping in, it's knowing who to ask for help and learning and, taking tidbits from this person, this group, a lot of colleagues in the industry I've learned from, from the business side. There's a lot of people management, not just in managing your own team, but the personalities of your clients. So you're constantly learning how to
communicate.
Communicate, and there's a lot of it's very rewarding, but you do run into difficult situations sometimes. So it's figuring out how to balance those situations. There are a lot of things I didn't think were so important in college. I learned were very important. Writing, writing was one. Communication, business. I never thought, when I went to design school, we don't really think about the business side of things. And now, I do more business than I do creative. But I actually quite enjoy that.
Well, that's the thing. You're people don't know this. Julie and I, my partner, we know this very much. You're very good at the business side. That's a pretty strong skill you have.
Thank you, Jason.
But why is that?
That's generous coming from you.
Well, it is. We see a lot of agencies, and you happen to be really good at it. You lead a team really well. Your team love you so much. They're an amazing group of people. Pretty mind blowing. As to how good they are. And those things are not accidental, right? When somebody has a strong agency and it's doing well, their team is strong, they have a great niche, that's growing. You don't accidentally do that stuff. You kind of have to work for it. It's really, really difficult. And I guess, do you feel like you work pretty hard intentionally? And have you ever been accidental and unintentional in things? And have you had to become more intentional in what you do?
Yeah, I think there's always a struggle of, dealing with the things that seem, urgent over the things that are more urgent over the things that are real priorities.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like it's easy to put out fires and try to get to the bottom of the inbox and deal with, those urgent issues. So I think it's a constant reevaluating and reshuffling and looking at, how to better prioritize and when you do your best thinking to get that more strategic time into the business. So it's a constant, you're constantly sort of shifting priorities and figuring out how to focus on the things you need to be, because you can get really distracted with all the other stuff that you have to deal with also. And those things are obviously having a great team to support you is critical.
Yeah. So learning how to prioritize, right? Because the running a business is just a flood of stuff. Basically, it's it's like the basement is flooding all the time, and
it's flooding all the time.
Yeah, and you go in the basement and you're like, okay, where should I most strategically scoop water first? And you're always doing that, and then eventually that becomes a skill. You're like, I always scoop in the corner before it. Maybe this is a bad analogy.
It sounds like it. I don't like it at all.
No. Yeah. Everybody's like, Jason is selling this agency ownership gig. So
totally.
But we understand it. So do you just get better at the skill of prioritizing what to focus on next? That's the next most important thing. Is that a skill you gain?
I do think so. I think it's a skill you gain, and it's also really sitting down and looking at the things that you need to focus on from a business perspective, whether it's new business or your team or financials, right? Yeah. But looking at what you need to focus on and of those various areas, what are the priorities and how you're going to tackle those.
Okay.
And making sure you have time allocated to those things, whether it's new business or whether it's financials. Is it quarterly? Is it weekly? And making sure that you're constantly staying on it and you have something that guides you. I mean, a plan, we've learned some time blocking from your team, but I really leverage that to make sure, because sometimes if things are if things aren't where I see them, in 2 weeks may go by and I'm like, oh, I didn't deal with that thing. I didn't pay my taxes. No, I'm just kidding.
Whoops. No,
your team makes sure I do that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
You have to kind of set these reminders and be very structured to a degree, but know when you have to shift things around, if that makes sense.
No, that's good. So I think entrepreneurship in general can be chaotic if it's not tackled and managed, so to speak. So I think we find entrepreneurs that are successful are ones who will allow structure to come in and start to guide them, right? Because you're not going to strategically look at your business growth, your financials, unless you set time aside to do it, because you'll always be trying to clear the inbox more, because it feels the weight of an inbox is so pressing on people. You'll choose to not do a strategic thing like review a set of financial statements. But you've always been open to coaching and kind of allowing your team to provide leadership, and you've allowed, like you said, you invite a lot of people into your life to help you coach, and you could go down the road and get distracted by other things. So how do you balance things like in your life, just focused on, how to be more strategic and then balance the things of dealing with an emergency or something in your life? What, the balance is so difficult. How do you think about balancing things?
It's really looking at it from a day-to-day perspective. I'll say this. It's actually looking at it longer term. So looking at it, 5 years, 1 year, and backing out of those 5 year and 1 year goals and looking at how you break those down into smaller, more bite-sized, manageable chunks, and then looking at it on a weekly or daily basis and seeing what those things are that you need to get done and that you need to be evaluating. And then within those goals and those those particular more strategic efforts that are going to drive your business forward, you sort of block and manage when you're going to get to those pieces or get to those things. And then now you have to fit in, when am I going to, deal with my team and work with my team and work on client work. And this client needs me. So you kind of backfill those things because you can't lose sight of any of that either. But it's also looking at when you do your best work. I feel like when are the times that I'm online and my team's online and my clients are online, and when are we presenting or looking at client work, and then when are my best times for thinking and making sure I get that uninterrupted, solid amount of time to get through those tasks. And it does require some reshuffling often.
Yeah. So it's planning. So for example, some big pitch to a client, that's coming up Monday at 2 p.m. You don't just go into the meeting Monday at 2 p.m. There's planning beforehand, like the week before. You have to have everything ready so that it's ready for a review or something like that. And then you have to have the week before, the team has to deliver some, their last iteration of that presentation. Yeah. And so do you block out all of that stuff to kind of get the pitch right on Monday at 2 p.m. or that's all on the calendar?
For a client, you mean, like for a client presentation?
Well, yeah, generally? I guess that's one example. It's something where there's a deadline of a pitch, and you got to back up from there and get everything on the calendar so that pitch works strategically and very well and at its highest level of value.
Yeah, I mean, if it's for something like a new business presentation, it's really starting to work on those materials early. I need time to work through them, let them sit, come back to them with fresh perspective. Okay. So I do really block that, and I'm a lot less anxious going into it if things are done ahead of time. So I try to get it done sooner rather than later so I can sit on it, let it percolate a little bit, and then make any edits. Yeah. I'll say for client presentations, we have a pretty structured, we call it our critique time. So there's really 4 1-hour blocks, Monday through Thursday. The team meets 2 days without me together and 2 days with me. So everyone's supposed to come with an agenda prepared of what they need to look at during that time block, and we each give each other feedback. So if there's something coming up, I should have seen it. The team should have seen it a number of times well before the client sees it. And ideally, those things need to be wrapped up, not the day of the presentation, but ideally a day or two before the presentation.
Wow.
So we can all, because you never know too. Sometimes things come up and you might get swamped with something else. So making sure everybody gets feedback.
Okay. So, all right. So it's called critique times. No, is that right?
Yeah, we just have a critique. It's like our daily critique in the afternoon.
Okay. And so you assign each day to a team member and they bring the agenda, or everybody comes in to each afternoon with their topics for that afternoon?
Everybody comes with their topics for the afternoon. So we have a calendar invite. Everybody's invited. It's either in person or Zoom, depending on where we all are. And they have to add their items to that time block. So when we come, we all know what we're going to be reviewing. That's
a trip. You are so organized, Brandie.
I try. I don't know.
Well,
depends on the day.
Well, if another agency owner is listening and they go, wow, I don't have nothing on my calendar, you have to have your calendar buttoned up, right, to either pull this off. Now, you had to at some point get that rhythm into your calendar and then get your team committed to coming to those blocks and then ready to present. How long did it take you to get that whole rhythm really humming so that the whole team knows what to expect? How long did it take you to build just that part of the structure?
I think when we first started doing it, like maybe 6 months to a year to figure out sort of what worked. We used to do it in the morning. Now we have somebody on the West Coast. We do it in the afternoon.
Okay.
But the idea was like, as creative director, I was interrupted a lot. Hey, can you look at this? Can you look at this? Like all day. And I was like, this isn't manageable. But also now everyone knows every day at this time is when we look at work together.
Cool.
And so they have a timeline. They know that if they need me to look at something on a Tuesday or a Thursday, it's got to be wrapped up by 4:00 on a Tuesday or a Thursday for me to take a look at it. If it's for their team members, it's, the Monday, Wednesday time slot. So it gives everybody some structure in terms of when work can be reviewed. And it doesn't mean we don't, if needed, we don't jump on and look at things earlier if we need to, but it provides that structure for everybody. So it's not a constant day of just interruptions. And if there isn't much to look at on a particular day, we just say, hey, nobody has anything new. We're all set for this. And we just cancel the meeting.
Okay. Yeah. So that recurrence really drives a lot of health and kind of just always dampening down or culling the chaos that really, creative service can create with clients because they're always needing something.
Exactly.
And so you have to get it structured.
If you have a presentation on Tuesday and you need me to look at something twice before next Tuesday, we have a critique time at Tuesday and we have a critique time at Thursday. So ideally, those are your 2 time slots.
Yeah, that's cool. Now, these recurring blocks that really cool down the chaos, they don't always work out, right? Because things blow up. And so what do you do? How do you move calendar blocks around to stay organized? How do you think about restructuring stuff that's already been pre-planned?
I mean, if it's looking at work that needs to be evaluated before a presentation, typically someone will just Slack me or say, hey, I saw you have some time. Can we talk about this? And, we jump on and manage it.
Okay.
There's a lot of shuffling things generally because I have times to work on this thing or that thing. And then, I'm needed on a call or a new proposal comes in. It's a big proposal. I kind of have to drop everything and work on it. So it's really about moving those things around.
Yeah.
I try not to delete them, but sometimes they get deleted. Don't tell Julie.
Julie, my partner, is a big calendar blocking pro. I've learned not to delete my blocks. Let me tell you.
It's tough because I think I probably sound a little bit like a tyrant with some of these time blocking sometimes, but it works. And that's why. And, it's always a struggle. Like I'm not 100% at it all the time. I don't think anybody is. But
No.
especially when you're we're working for many big clients and many big firms, and the work's very important, and we're providing value, and there's a lot of deliverables and a lot of changes and a lot of requests. So how to manage all that and not sort of cannibalize everybody's calendars all day long is tricky. Because I appreciate that the team should get others' feedback besides just mine. So we like to do that as a group, because everybody has a different perspective. And, if we're working on a big project, somebody's working on the branding piece, somebody else on the team may be working on the website piece or social media assets. So it's really important to have everybody on those calls together, because, one thing affects the other.
Yeah, that's amazing. I do have some questions about, the niche that you've chosen and kind of working, deeply within that. But I do want to ask some questions about your team, ask you some team questions. So Julie and I have been able to work with your team. So that's when I say they're incredible. We actually know that personally. So we've met them and worked with them. How did you build a great team like that? How do you do that? If somebody's listening and they really have one or two people and they need to add 3 or 4, what are some tips you would tell them they need to think about?
Oh, I think finding
that's hard. That's big.
Yeah. Finding good talent is always a challenge. So finding someone with the skill set and the experience is a challenge. Where we can, we get referrals from our network as much as possible. We try to get candidates really good candidates however we can, but I would say the evaluation process between looking at their work and really asking lots of questions up front. We do some design tests, which is coming in and working with us maybe on a small project.
Cool.
We do pay, we do pay a fee for that to make sure it's, we're not asking people to work for free and give up their time. Have them present back to us, see how they understand the project and how they solve the problem within, what's a pretty limited amount of time. But I would say looking at who's a cultural fit, because we're a small team and we work very closely together and we spend a lot of time, I think having someone, making sure everybody fits culturally and is rowing in the same boat. And that is really important to us. It's really important to me because I spend more hours with these individuals than probably anybody. So, you do want to work with people who are strong designers and can do the work, but you also want to work with people that you enjoy working with. So we try not to take ourselves too seriously. We try to have fun. We laugh. We're serious when we have to be serious. And I think it's really about being open and being human.
Okay. Being transparent, really, bringing yourself, your real self, your authentic self to work, and somebody like you as a leader, letting people bring themselves and not trying to make yourself be what you think this company wants you to become.
And I think, I try to understand where everyone's skill sets lie and what people enjoy working on. So sometimes I ask, and team never wants to tell you what they don't enjoy working on.
Right.
They think that's bad.
Right.
I like to know, because
that's
as
true.
I say, if you don't like working on something and somebody else does, maybe we shift. But I always say it doesn't mean I'm not going to ask you to do it because you don't like working on it. But it's good for me to know. There's a lot of things I do during my day I don't necessarily like. I don't love everything I do, but that's how the real world works. So it is about understanding people's strengths and weaknesses and what they enjoy and what they, but also what they want to learn more about. So what they'd like to study or what kinds of projects they might want to work on. Do they want to do more UX, UI or more strategy? Or, I'm not particularly great at presenting and I really want to work on that. So could I present to this client and could you coach me a little bit through that? So I try to give them opportunities for that.
Cool.
as much as possible.
Yeah. And it is true. Team probably feel weird about saying, here's what I don't like, because it's like that's their job, and but yeah, I guess they get used to telling you because you actually mean it when you ask them, so that you can run a better agency by knowing that. So that's really cool. All right, so I'm going to ask you a hard question. You ready?
Yeah.
All right, so now you have to take the viewpoint of your team. So now you're speaking on behalf of your team. What would they say are your greatest leadership qualities?
My greatest leadership qualities.
Yes. Now you have to really pump yourself up here.
I think being open with them. I think being open with them. There's always full transparency. The team pretty much always knows what I'm thinking, where I'm coming from. It could be good or bad. But I do think I try to give them as much ownership as they're willing to take and as they're open to. And there's a lot of different ways to do things. And unless there's something I feel strongly about, if someone on the team has a particular way they want to deliver project or work, I'm open to that. We may take 3 concepts in for a logo, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't think that third one's going to fly, and here's why. But they feel strongly about it. I'm like, all right, let's take it in and let's see what happens, Yeah. So I try to give them some ownership over the work, because that's how people learn and grow. And, sometimes I'm wrong. So
yeah, for sure. Well, so I'm gonna spring something on you here right in the middle of the podcast, is that since I know your team, I emailed them and asked them, what are your greatest leadership qualities? I'm surprising you. I did. No, I have quotes here. I won't say who they're from, but I'm going to read them, and you comment on them.
Wow, you're very sneaky.
Listen, Brandie, don't even mess with me because I'm sneaky. Here's what one person said. These are great. I knew they would be, because I know these people. One said, Brandie knows the right balance between providing guidance, assistance, and knowing when to push you. She's not afraid to give you the opportunity to rise to a challenge, learn, and grow, all while being there for support. She helps you acknowledge your strengths and use them to your advantage to grow in other areas. As a leader, I appreciate the push and pull that helps drive me forward in my professional development.
Wow,
so that's one.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, that's the description of you. Very. Do you do that? The push and pull, like you push them to a greater place, but you're not scared to kind of challenge them too. Does that, you think that reflects you?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, we all need to be challenged. That's how we grow. That's how we learn, right?
Yeah. Okay,
and
I have some more.
We're a small team, so we've all got to chip in and learn. So
that's right. Yeah. So you in a small team, you can't have somebody that's just kind of waiting behind the scenes, because it's like, no, we see you sitting there like it's us 6. There you are. So what do you think?
Exactly.
Okay, so this next one is, these team, man, you have some rocking team. They think you're amazing.
They didn't tell me this. They're very sneaky too.
No, I told them. I said, do not tell Brandie. I'm going to spring this on her. And they're like, yes, spring this on Brandie. They want me to do that. Nice. So this next one says, one thing, and you probably can guess who wrote these, but I'm not going to say.
Okay.
They'll rat themselves out maybe when the podcast comes out.
Probably, yeah.
But this next one says, one thing that consistently impresses me about Brandie is her understanding of strategic communications. We have moments throughout larger projects where an issue or question comes up, and internally we may feel like, how do we deal with this? Like, how do we best communicate with the client vendor? How much should we say? How do we position ourselves? And she has an impressive ability to cut through noise of potential stress or conflict and communications and get right to the point, not only in what we communicate, but how we say it, in order to get the best outcome for the projects, the clients, and so on. So how do you cut through the noise and go, this is the top issue in the middle of this breakdown in communication? How do you do that? Because apparently you're very good at it.
Yeah, it comes back to that personality management a little bit. It's also understanding maybe what sometimes the issue isn't really the issue. There's something else going on, right? Or if it's a design problem, somebody wants to change. I mean, it depends on what it is, but sometimes what you're being told is a problem isn't really the problem. So it's a little bit about understanding that and managing. Some of it's managing my team, but managing clients a little bit more, maybe pushing them some, knowing when to be firm, knowing when you got to pick your battles and give in. So,
wow. That's
or when you need more information, sometimes we can be very reactive instead of taking a step back and saying, okay, so if something's going on here, let's try to understand what the real issues are and work through this.
It's very nuanced leadership skills, because there's not a book that's going to tell you in a moment what to do. You're leaning on your experience to go, no, the client's not going to do that. That's a hard wall they're running into. Let's lean into putting up a wall. They're not going to surpass what we're leading them to do. And other times you're like, we're not going to fight that one. Is that just the nuance of leadership over years of experience? Is that how you learn that?
A little bit. And I think also explaining where you're coming from with whatever the issue is, right? Okay. Like understanding all sides and making sure you're heard and the team's heard. And here's how we're going to approach this, or here's what we think we should do, and here's our recommendation and why. And then if there's still opposition, or for lack of a better word, at least you've stated your case, and you have a reason for your stance, your original stance, and just kind of move forward.
Yeah, nice. Okay, so this is the last one from your team. This is good stuff. I love springing this on you in a podcast. It's awesome. This person said, one leadership quality I think Brandie has is genuine care for others. In my time working with her, she has always been part of my professional goals as well as my personal goals. She really wants to build us up as people and workers, and she gives us more opportunities and inspiration to do so. She really cares about her work and the people in her life. There you go. You care a lot about the people in your life. I know you. That reflects you. Yeah.
I do. I care about them as people, and I care about them as professionals. So, some of the things we do outside of client work is looking at where they want to grow professionally and where they want to be in their career, and trying to help them get there, right? So looking at where some of their weaknesses are, or areas of improvement, what maybe they don't, I don't know so much about this particular area and I'd like to learn more. So setting some goals for professional development and how to get there. Sometimes there's personal goals. We meet frequently, and there's, personal goals they want to achieve. And I try not to get too much in that area, but I'll say, how's that working out coming for you?
Nice.
Just like, how many times did you get to the gym this week?
Yeah.
But obviously that's sort of outside of the bounds of what I'm supposed to do. But if it's a goal, we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
And then one thing I found the most valuable in working with the team that I ask, and this wasn't my idea, I got it from someone else, and I don't remember who. I don't know if they got it from a book, so I can't take credit. But meeting with teams is saying, for the last month or for the last quarter or whatever, they have to come with a professional high and a professional low. So what went really well and what did not go well.
Nice.
And it could be, those things could be anything from a client presentation to an interaction with a team member to an interaction with a client. But it gets, whatever that thing was that wasn't so great and didn't go so well, you've probably already thinking about it as a leader, but it allows them the opportunity to bring that to the table and for you to talk about it more openly. So what happened, and what can we do to avoid it next time? And, it's not, sometimes it's just like the circumstances of the project or whatever, it's external. Yeah. But it gives everybody a chance to talk about it. And then what was fabulous, what went really well, and It's a chance to pray while looking at something maybe that didn't go so well. It's also a chance to really praise a team member and look at, a way to really just say, like, you did an amazing job on this. Would you like to do more of this work? Or, maybe you should train this person to do more of this work. So that's a brilliant leadership move. So you're not bringing up a place they're struggling. You're saying, where are you struggling? And they're probably going to bring up what they recognize as one of their biggest struggles. They're the one who put it on the table. So now it's not as hard for them. Maybe they don't have to be as defensive. Mm-hmm. They're the ones who said it. And you're like, well, cool. Tell me more about why that's a struggle. And now you can have a real conversation where they're not feeling like you came at them and pointed it out. Exactly.
That's brilliant. And I think also team don't realize how valuable they are and the great things that they do that, an owner appreciates. And they're not going to praise a thing they think is pretty normal and that's part of my job, when really you're going, thank you for doing that. I'm so thankful. And so they may bring that to you as a win. And you're like, that was so helpful to me. I mean, so are there times of praise to your team that come up that wouldn't have come up had you not asked that question?
Possibly. Or, sometimes there's more than one thing. I would say typically we try to be very open when things go well. If one of us if I'm in a presentation with somebody and they knock it out of the park, we try, it's not always me, somebody else on the team will do it and say, oh, so-and-so did a great job on this. They presented really well. Great work. And so we try to feed that, especially now that we're not all in the same office all the time. Yeah. We try to share that openly. And so, but I'm not always the one leading that. The team very often will beat me to it and put something in there. So that's great.
Yeah. And, we've seen other great teams do that. And we do have to say that's probably because your leadership is the example to them to do that. So the fact that they speak up is because they've seen you demonstrate that a lot. And I know that's true about you, which is so cool that you build team up like that. Julie and I just made an offer to somebody, and they were so excited, and we were able to tell them, we're excited too. Like, we're so grateful you're agreeing to come on this journey with us. So I think I think a lot of our team don't realize how grateful we are for their commitment and focus to the business we started. We're like, thank you so much for just making your whole professional life focused here. Do you feel that gratefulness to the team, and they probably don't realize how grateful you are for their commitment? You think that's true?
Possibly, yeah. Because I wouldn't be able to do this without them, right? Yeah. And we've grown. We're growing slowly but smartly. But I have a wonderful team. We have many great clients, and our clients love our team. Mm-hmm. They love working with them. They enable us to do really amazing work. Many of them, all of them really have grown substantially since they've came on board with Knox. So it's given me the ability to give them more ownership and more responsibility so that I can continue to grow the business and continue to do more of the strategic things that I enjoy doing. Right. Because I have that trust in them. But, that comes from a place of them being willing and open to learning and pushing the envelope themselves a little bit, getting out of their own comfort zone often. That's
so cool. All right. So we're getting close to time here, but I got to know about your book. So you're writing a book. So tell me. I'm
totally trying to write a book.
Well, yeah, it's like, when do you have time to write a book? So you run a pretty busy agency. So what? And I know tell us what it's about. So just kind of briefly the focus.
Okay. Really is I'm looking at it right now as a guide for a professional services firm. So everything from brand strategy to marketing comms, website, even I'm hoping to target part of the book to more internal communications and applications. So like knowledge management teams, but really looking at all the questions we ask, we get asked and answer often. There's an assumption, I think, that if you're working on a rebrand, that everyone in a marketing team has been through a rebrand before, and they haven't always, right? So it's giving them background and guidance, one, to help them manage the process, to select the right design partner, to get buy-in from their internal clients, right? So looking at the overall process, what tools and resources are helpful, who do you need to consider? So if we're going to rebrand the firm, who do I need to consider internally? Who's the team who I need to make sure I have buy-in? And who are sort of the team that just needs to know this is happening? And then who's that external team? So part of it is knowing the things you don't know and who you can leverage externally to help with those things. So, it's ideally each chapter will have each section, at least right now, like a focus on all those different areas.
Okay. I mean, it can be, all that sounds pretty complicated. Which is probably why, is that why you're writing a book? Because it's like some of this feels so unknown. You just kind of know how to do it, but a lot of people just don't. They need a book to kind of walk them through that. Is that why?
I think so. And it's not a cover to cover read, but it is something to help guide and that you can reference as you move through a project. I think it will be good for senior people, but also even for more junior marketing, business development, support staff. Yeah,
cool. Well, will you have some leadership stories in there? Because you're a great leader. Leadership principles.
I hope so.
Yes.
Leadership principles. Yeah, leadership.
I like that. Come on. We need to learn.
Right, that's good. I'm going to make a note of that.
How do we lead like Brandie leads? That's what we. And your team's the one pointing out how you lead. So you're an amazing leader. So, cool.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, Brandie, thank you for being on the Businessology Show. If people want to find out more about you, what's the URL they should go to?
knoxdesignstrategy.com.
Okay. And they'll go see how Brandie leads and then look forward to your book coming out soon. So, okay.
Thank you.
Any closing words, Brandie, for us on the Businessology Show?
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. It was great to be here. And I'll throw a special shout out to my awesome team as well for their comments.
Yeah. They're amazing. They kept it quiet with us. So they went behind your back to do it.
Very sneaky.
They did. Yeah. So, okay. Well, cool. Thanks, Brandie, for being on the show with us. We'll see you later.
Thank you, Jason.